So 2 years ago I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and similar to my Mafia Definitive Edition video, I thought I'd go back and replay the game. The thing is, with Mafia, I already enjoyed that game when I played it the first time round, and I just wanted to try it out again because I had missed it and it was so good. However, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, when I first played that game, I remember liking it to a degree, but I think the whole leveling system just put me off. And although there was a lot of stuff I definitely enjoyed about the game, the massive RPG element to it just shadowed over it all for me. So I thought it would be a great time to go back and revisit that game, just with a more open mind, and how I'm now aware that it's going to have this incredibly grindy feel to it, which I know many people like and enjoyed about it, and just take it all in and slowly progress through the game. And it's safe to say I'm really glad I did this time. So this video will be a bit different. With the Mafia video, I mainly did that just because I wasn't very proud of the first one and it was very outdated. As for this one, it's more of a retrospective, so I'm not going to be repeating the same stuff I already spoke about then, and it's not necessarily what the game is all about for people that don't know. So although it is almost 2 years old, I'll still link the original video in the description for anyone that does want to watch it. But for this one, it's mainly me just talking about the stuff I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy this time round, and just my overall opinion that I've built up from going back and playing it again with a whole new look on it. I mean, first off, the world of Assassin's Creed Odyssey looks incredible and definitely is probably in my top 3 of my favourite settings in the entire franchise. Just no matter what you think of this game, whether that be the story that you don't like or the gameplay itself, just walking or traversing on your horse around the world, I mean, everywhere you look looks visually stunning. Because of course the game is all set in ancient Greece and is the biggest map in terms of size by far. So with it covering 90 square miles, the amount of variety and just diversity in this world is endless. And one of the biggest criticisms of, let's say, Valhalla was that it was too empty and very boring and just repetitive, mainly because it was set in 873 AD England and Norway. So of course, the world and the gameplay is gonna feel so repetitive, seeing just the same green and brown colours, the fields and the forests, you know if you've played the game. Although saying that, I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought for a Viking game, basically, the world just felt so peaceful a lot of the time. And of course, I am from England, so I guess there is a bit of bias there. Linking in with the world of this game, as I said earlier when I first played the game, I think it might have been the big RPG elements that I just wasn't a fan of, mainly because of how much a grind that leveling system was. But also, I think another big reason is how overwhelming the world was. I came off Origins and I loved that game, and I even thought that was a lot. So going into an even bigger open world with so much content, with a majority being side quests and objectives, it just felt like so much to take in at once, which is why I think it was a great time to revisit the game. So slowly progressing through the game definitely made it more enjoyable for me. I'm never a massive fan of doing much of the side content in games. I tend to really focus on the main story if I can, and then I do the extra stuff afterwards so it doesn't feel like a chore. But as you know, and as I found out, that's basically impossible with the leveling system of Odyssey, and that's why I branched out this time round and tried to do as many objectives as I could, as well as more exploring, which I think is one of the biggest reasons why I enjoyed it a lot more this time. Not only did I take it more slow, but also doing the side objectives made you explore more of the map, and I definitely appreciated the size and just the variety of this world, whereas before I just found it a bit overwhelming. But I guess that is sort of why there's so much extra side content with it, which is why they want you to explore this world a lot more and stay in a certain location for a long time, rather than just quickly moving on to the next with the next main mission. It makes sense, to be honest, and I did enjoy progressing through it at this pace. Technically, this is the most difficult Assassin's Creed game because of the level you need to be. Even if you're just 2 to 3 levels under, I remember it could be really frustrating trying to take on certain enemies, and that's where it became less fun. Not to say that the side content is worth doing in terms of the actual missions you do. I must admit, a lot of them are just filler, but as I mentioned, it does make you explore more of the world and its characters, which you wouldn't get to meet if you didn't try them out. And I sort of expected this with how big the world is and how many there are, but I'm sure a lot of people don't care, as it's just extra stuff they can explore as they go, which I know many players love about this game, as it is pretty much endless. And although I'm a fan of the more linear and tighter stories, unless the side missions have a lot of work and good writing put into them, which usually isn't the case with Ubisoft, I didn't mind it an awful lot. It just meant I could traverse through the map more. I do want to talk about the loadout and the gear system of the game, which I know a lot of people did complain about, because it felt like you were constantly having to change and upgrade it. But in my opinion, and I even thought this beforehand, I quite liked it, and it always felt like you were moving forward and just kept on getting stronger bit by bit. I do understand what people mean when they say that, because you do always have to think about what loot you have on you, and every time you take enemies down or complete a mission, you probably have to check if you now have a stronger piece of gear on you, and then sort through your entire inventory and stuff. I think it also falls into the trap of the restricted feeling of upgrading your weapons, as using all your resources to improve or engrave them, and then suddenly finding a better one right after, it just makes it feel like a waste, and you don't feel the need to use your resources on that. I guess it all depends on how slow of a pace you go through the game, which is always just personal preference, and overall it just seems like you're better off spending them on your ship. And then there's the combat, which I also know is a massive turn off for some people. I think mainly just because it was so different. There's a lot of over the top moves and abilities you can use, which, comparing it to the typical Assassin's Creed combat system, it is a massive step up and change. The same goes with the removal of the hidden blade. I can understand why people want that. I mean, it is a big feature in all the games. I think just because it was so different and they changed so much else, having no hidden blade wasn't a massive deal to me. And I think just getting rid of everything else I know about the other games and trying not to compare them all. And to be honest, you could say that about the game in general. It doesn't really feel like an Assassin's Creed, but it was fun having all this different stuff we weren't used to. It just spiced up the gameplay and made it way more exaggerative. Also linking into the whole upgrade system part of it, where you keep on becoming stronger, and the skill tree actually makes a massive difference, and just using one ability point can really change it all, especially when you switch out the melee and the ranged abilities. And although not very realistic, it makes for some really cool ones that we aren't entirely used to, especially with how strong and how much of a damage sponge the enemies are. Definitely in terms of the mercenaries, having all these special and strong abilities to use. And although it doesn't have that typical and that slick feeling of the Assassin's Creed combat because of who we're going up against, having that makes it a bit more balanced and just gives you a way better chance against them. So at the end of the day, I found it kind of fun, and the specials helped so much. I mean, if the enemies weren't so tanky, then maybe more typical Assassin's combat would have worked better. In a way, I think the way they did it was needed because of the enemy types. It also looks so brutal in terms of the animations. There's a good amount of variety in terms of the finishes and the moves. The swings and attacks, they look very hard hitting, although a lot of the time they clearly don't hit hard when you see how much health the enemy has left. A lot of the more advanced ranged abilities took a bit of getting used to, I must admit, with the bow and arrow and stuff, and definitely are more unrealistic, let's say, like the predator shot where you gain control of the arrow and you can move it in the air, and the ghost arrow that goes through literally anything just to target the enemy. And just quickly, I want to go back to the story one more time, and one thing I did enjoy is how they added dialogue options, which gave you way more control over how Cassandra or Alexios are perceived by other people, and just more responsibility. With some side characters you meet, the cutscenes can go on for quite a while, and having you basically choose how they go made it way more enjoyable, especially the ones that felt like filler. The story is something about the game that I'm in the middle with. I mean, I didn't mind following through it. Cassandra definitely has a lot more personality to her compared to Alexios, which I think is quite a positive because the story is quite lengthy, so having a mediocre character to follow would have made it drag way more and more boring. In terms of the actual plot of the story, I didn't love it nor hate it. I just think for a game of this magnitude, I think the story left me a bit underwhelmed and just that's it sort of feeling to it. But it wasn't like I didn't enjoy following through it and seeing it all unfold. I could happily sit through it if I ever wanted to check out the game again. I just wanted bigger things to happen, especially for the closure of it all, but there's definitely been way worse. And I think that's where I end my review of Assassin's Creed Odyssey in 2025, but of course more of a retrospective to it. And I think that's all I want to say. I definitely enjoyed it way more this time round, and I sort of thought I would even before playing it, just because I think I went about it the wrong way the first time. I don't think I really expected it, and I definitely treated it too harshly the first time. I think on my tier list I put it at 9 in terms of the 12 games that were out, and I think now it would probably go up to at least a 7 or a 6. Probably a 6, I'd say. It's definitely a game that I could easily sit through again and just enjoy playing, whereas other games feel like a chore to sit through. So if you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below, and if you enjoy single player and also multiplayer games as well, then that's what this channel does focus on. I have many playlists on a selection of games, so you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to, and if you want to support me any further, then you can become become a member at either level 1 or 2 to gain access to various perks. Then tap the join button on the channel. Thank you all for the support and watching until the very end. And that was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and bye bye.